Zheng was struck by this voice. It took a while for him to come back to his senses. He immediately shouted. F***ck, hurry. Everyone run to the deepest part of the tomb. Evelyn looked around and said. Patience is a virtue. This is a tomb. There are traps everywhere. We can get killed if we go too fast. Zheng started running ahead as he yelled. I just received a mission notice. This tomb will collapse in 10 minutes if I don't get the bracelet. F***ck, why would I get a mission when I spent my own points to get here? This doesn't even make sense. F***ck God. The others were dumbfounded as they saw Zheng running away. Then hurried behind him. Aside from Jonathan, who said. I suddenly have an upset stomach. Let me go take a dump. I will be back in 10 minutes. O'Connell and Ardith grabbed him on both sides and dragged him into the tomb. The tomb felt ghastly and damp. The scorpions and spiders made them uncomfortable. Although Zheng couldn't feel anything, since he was running against the clock. Once 10 minutes were up, he would die before the tomb could collapse. He couldn't come up with 5,000 points to deduct. Plus, it was lucky to encounter a bonus mission. Who knows when would he see one again? So he didn't want to just leave the tomb. A sense of danger suddenly struck him. He rolled to the front without thinking. A large sword hit where he were at. The hand holding it wasn't a human hand. A human body with a dog's head walked out from a narrow path. It was 3 meters tall, with a black body, and holding a large sword. It looked like one of Anubis's army in the movie. The monster moved faster than the mummies from the first movie. The sword slashed at Zheng horizontally with the tip scratching against the wall, causing flares on the point of contact. Zheng turned around the moment he landed as he took out the axe. He jumped straight into the monster. The axe and sword met each other. The lightning enveloping the axe made it seem like Thor's hammer. It easily caught the sword and crushed it and also crushed the monster into dust. Everyone be careful. There are monsters in the tomb. Zheng yelled to the people behind him before he could catch his breath. Then he saw them running at him at twice the speed from before. Jonathan yelled. Don't need your reminders. There are a lot of monsters behind. Zheng looked past them and saw several Anubis warriors chasing after them. They moved in the tomb swiftly with their large swords. Zheng sighed. He could have taken care of the Anubis's warriors without even unlocking, but God only gave him 10 minutes. These warriors were obviously placed here to delay him. If they are here, then I could have entrusted my back to them. He took out a submachine gun and ran ahead of everyone. I will clear the way, take care of yourself. An Anubis warrior had already ran up to him from the front. Zheng had entered the unlock mode when he was done shouting. The movements of the warrior became clear in his eyes. Numerous information streamed into his head. He sprayed the gun at the warrior's calves and broke its leg off. The warrior fell over at him and hit itself at the incoming axe. Jonathan was somehow running just a meter behind Zheng. He said hurriedly. Not bad. Feels like a man to use an axe as a weapon. Zheng suddenly recalled what he said to the original owner of this weapon and smiled bitterly. He didn't reply and kept running ahead. There were only 3 warriors on the way. He killed all of them before they could close in since magical bullets were effective against them. How much longer? Who knows how much time we have left? Zheng yelled, but he didn't even have the time to look behind him. Evelyn said. 6 minutes. Only 6 minutes left. Zheng was getting anxious. What about the guides? Aren't they the experts? Which doors or walls should go through? Say something. Jonathan sighed behind him. They probably never experienced this kind of scenario, so they disappeared after a while of running. I think they ran into the wrong path and may not be alive anymore. Why didn't I see you run into a wrong path? Zheng casually responded, then a sword was coming straight at his face. These Anubis's warriors had learned to throw their weapons. The movie characters were behind him, so he couldn't even dodge them. He could take a hit or two, but it would probably take half the life of anyone behind him. F***ck. Zheng had no choice but to block it with his axe. The throw was powerful along with the weapon's heavy weight. It knocked him back a meter and collided with Jonathan, who was behind him, also dragging everyone to the ground. Everyone get down. Zheng yelled. He might as well start going all out now. He took out the Gatling cannon and began spraying the front and back of the tunnel. The shooting speed of several thousand rounds a minute plus the power of the cannons crushed 10 warriors in just 2 rounds. Everyone looked at this exaggerating weapon with their mouths open. Using a Gatling cannon by just one person was shocking. What are you waiting for? Run. Zheng threw it back into the dimensional bag and met eyes with the people on the ground. They followed Zheng running along the tunnel. He killed 10 more warriors on the way, and luckily there were no real threats. When there was only 4 minutes left, Evelyn pointed to a wall. It's here. I have a feeling it's behind this wall. In the original plot, it was Evelyn recalling her previous life that brought them to the secret tomb. So Zheng hacked the wall with the axe without thinking. It created an opening on the wall. He could see a room through the opening. However, before his axe hit the wall again, he saw a 3-meter-long scorpion, or perhaps, the ancestor of scorpions. It wasn't just one. As he looked closely through the opening, there were at least 7 of them. I hate you, God. Zheng didn't know what to do. Breaking through the wall would release the scorpions. He couldn't block them all at once. Plus, with their size, it wasn't just simply an issue with venom. The sting could open a hole in the body. At the same time, the footsteps coming through the tunnel signaled the Anubis army. It seemed like all the warriors in the tomb were closing in on them. Any delay and they might be trapped in a sea of monsters. Of course, it wouldn't even need any monsters when the 4 minutes remaining were up. F***ck. Let us make a bet then. Zheng shouted. He took out a grenade and pulled the ring. Bet? What bet? Jonathan was shocked at the large scorpion. To see if the tomb is sturdy enough. Zheng threw the grenade into the opening, then brought everyone down to the ground and covered them. A violent explosion followed. Numerous rocks hit his back and the tomb was trembling. Everyone held their breaths as if heavy breathing was the last straw to collapsing the tomb. Fortunately, the trembling ended shortly. Only a little rocks fell from the ceiling. Then they saw another grenade appeared in Zheng's hand. No, no, no. You can't do this. We have no plan to destroy this place. Relax, we will get the bracelet in 10 minutes. Jonathan was most sensitive to danger. He grabbed a hold of Zheng and yelled. Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Relax. There's a way out through the inside. We just need to block off the monsters behind us. I don't want to see them when I am taking the bracelet. Since we made a bet already, I don't think the tomb would collapse with this one. Jonathan had no choice but to enter the opening they just bombed open. The room had become black and in a mess. The scorpions were gone except for some burning exoskeletons. There was no time for them to think. They stayed close to the wall and closed their eyes. The tomb started trembling again with another violent explosion. Soon enough, the trembling weakened and finally the tomb calmed down. They opened their eyes with a sigh of relief. Evelyn looked out through the hole they came in and saw the tunnel had collapsed. Jonathan turned to Zheng. Please, you better not lie. I still have a lot of gold in the bank. I need to bring a dozen girls to the beach before anything happens to me. Zheng laughed. Oh, you want water? You can get water in a bit. Jonathan shivered and asked O'Connell in confusion. What did he mean? Why did he said water when I mentioned the beach? O'Connell shrugged. Who knows? But beaches should be next to water. Zheng walked to a wall. Evelyn pointed at it and said. Right, there should be a switch or something. Press it and this wall will raise. But the explosion might have destroyed the switch. Zheng panicked. He raised the axe and hacked at the wall. Clank. The wall was actually made of granite. The axe only left a light mark on it. Evelyn yelled. There's only 1 minute left, Zheng. Zheng yelled back. I know. Everyone get away. He channeled chi and blood energy into the axe. He had no time to worry about whether the axe could take in so much energy at the same time. Then he swung the axe at the wall. It hacked off a big piece of granite. The golden energy from the fusion of chi and blood energy also corroded the granite rapidly. 10 swings later, he opened a hole through this thick wall and Zheng was panting heavily. He looked behind to see everyone staring at him. What the heck are you still waiting for? Do you want me to carry you? Hurry. How much time do we have left? Evelyn looked at her watch and her face turned pale. Less than a minute, it's too short to tell how many seconds. Zheng ran in at full speed. Before long, he came to a gate sealed with an ancient Egyptian lock. Evelyn was shocked as soon as she entered the place. Then she looked around. Zheng yelled. Evelyn, hurry up and tell me how to turn it. No, you go turn it. We don't have much time left. However, Evelyn didn't hear him and started dancing while holding the torch. O'Connell shook her body and said. What happened? Evelyn, are you okay? Zheng was getting more and more anxious. He didn't have the time to wait for Evelyn to wake up and open the lock. He took out the spear of Osiris without thinking. Zheng clenched his teeth as he began channeling energy into the spear. The anxiety was growing with every second. When a golden glow finally appeared on the spear, his eyes lost focus. He threw the spear at the gate. The golden light flashed across and easily penetrated the gate. There was no trembling or explosion. The spear opened a hole on the gate then stuck on the ground. Zheng charged into the hole at once. He grabbed the spear with one hand and a chest on the table with another. He flipped open the chest and there was indeed a golden bracelet. As soon as he put his hand on the bracelet, God's voice appeared. Completed bonus plot in advance. Obtain the bracelet of Anubis. Allows the user to summon the army of Anubis after killing the Scorpion King. The number of warriors is 50 times the number of mummies the user can summon. If the Scorpion King is not killed after 60 days, the holder of this item will be erased. Obtain 4,000 points and 2 rank C rewards. Zheng walked out from the hole with the bracelet and said bitterly. Completed the mission. We are safe for now. Safe for now. Jonathan was panting heavily. He was running faster than anyone else so he was also more exhausted. He almost collapsed when he heard the word safe. Zheng put the bracelet into his ring then threw the chest to Evelyn. Take a look at what it reads. Evelyn read out the hieroglyphs on the chest. Whoever opened the chest would drink from the Nile. Zheng nodded at them with a bitter smile. This is a trap. Once you take the bracelet, a gate from the other side will open. It seems like outside the gate is the Nile River. Everyone was dumbfounded. Jonathan yelled. I hate you, Zheng. Don't hate me, hate God. Zheng looked at the torrent of water coming down the tunnel. Along with the floodgate opening, the wall on the other side of the tunnel opened up a path. Zheng heard the sound and said to everyone. Hurry, the way out is opened. O'Connell, go carry your wife. Zheng headed through the hole and saw a new path on the side. He entered it without hesitation and suddenly felt pain on his left shoulder. The whole arm turned numbed instantly. That was when he noticed a large scorpion in the tunnel. Its tail stung his arm. Shit. There was no time for him to take the axe from his left hand. The movie characters and the water were coming from behind so he couldn't back either. He channeled all his chi and blood energy to bring up the fusion flame, then jumped at the scorpion. The scorpion bit his shoulder but at the same time it was consumed by his flame. Its exoskeleton cracked and shattered. The others had just entered the path at this time. As soon as they saw the body of the scorpion, the water flooded in and carried them deep into the path. To their despair, what was in front of them was a wall, and the group fell into a silence. Zheng knew that behind this wall was the lobby where they first entered the tomb. In the original movie, it was Evelyn's son who knocked down a pillar by accident and broke open this wall. However, Evelyn's son wasn't even born at this time. He had to think of another way. Zheng brought out the spear of Osiris again without much thinking. He had used up a large amount of blood energy and chi already, but he had no other choice. As they were getting closer to the wall, he clenched his teeth and began channeling the energies into the spear. Zheng was finally able to throw the spear when there were 10 meters left to the wall. A golden light flashed across and opened up a 2-meter wide hole. The group was pushed out through the hole by the water and landed on the ground. Water kept coming through the hole for a while then stopped. It seemed like the floodgate closed itself. They lay on the ground without moving a finger. No one bothered to check what was around since they were exhausted. This feeling of escaping from the edge of hell was more intense than hitting the lottery 10 times. Ardith also lay on the ground quietly until he smashed a scorpion passing by. He noticed Zheng's arm was swollen and turned black. Zheng was struggling to take out the dimensional bag with his right arm. Ardith immediately ran over to him and took the bag out. Zheng fetched a syringe from the bag then stabbed it on his arm. He finally let out a sigh of relief. That was shitty luck. I got ambushed by a scorpion as soon as I entered the path. Luckily, I brought antidotes with me. Zheng muttered. The swell on his arm was subsiding, black-colored blood oozed out from where he was stung. Ardith stabbed his shoulder a few more times with a knife to let the black blood come out. After bleeding out a pool of black blood on the ground, Zheng's arm returned to normal size. Though it still looked red, like being burned with boiling water. The venom was strong. Fortunately, it was me who got stung. And it still required an antidote with my physical stats. The others also sat up by this time. Jonathan said. This adventure wasn't interesting. I didn't get anything aside from water. Zheng laughed. Who said so? The bracelet of Anubis is good stuff. You might not understand this, but if we obtain the Scorpion King's treasure, you can find an enormous diamond inside. The diamond will be worth more than any gold. Haha. Jonathan said excitedly. Diamond? How big is it? As big as a pigeon's egg? No, that seems a little too big. Is it bigger than a pinky? Zheng drew a circle with his hands. The size of a soccer ball, maybe a little bigger. Haha, that's the only diamond of its size in the world. Jonathan replied without any excitement. Are you toying with me? There can't be a diamond so big in the world, only in legends. Zheng smiled. I am sorry, but the Scorpion King is a legend. Let's get back to the dirigible. Or do you like this place so much? O'Connell picked out Evelyn and laughed. You finally see how horrifying adventures are? After we get back, you will wait by Hamunaptra for us to return. Understand? He followed Zheng out the tomb. Evelyn smiled. I have you here. I don't want to stay alone and worry about your safety. We came out safely even when it was so dangerous this time, so as long as we be careful, we will be fine. Zheng smiled bitterly as he heard their conversation. To be honest, he couldn't guarantee any safety in searching for the Scorpion King. If God suddenly decides to give him 1 or 2 surprises, especially with the difficulty raised to the highest for entering plots in advance, could he search for the treasure by himself? When he thought about it, obtaining the bracelet had already been so difficult. What about completing the whole plot of The Mummy Returns? Especially at its highest difficulty? There was no comrade he could rely on. The movie characters might be stronger than normal people, but they were still on the same level as newbies. He didn't have the confidence to challenge the Scorpion King with this team. However, if he doesn't do it, there would only be 60 days left in his life. Once he began the search for the bracelet, there was no turning back. So this was what the clone experienced. No wonder he became so strong. After they returned to the dirigible, Zheng said in a serious tone. Everyone, I will go search for the Scorpion King alone. It's too dangerous. I can't put you in such risks. You can see from this adventure that I will make every little problem around me into life and death situations. I am much stronger than you. If I died, you won't be able to make it back alive. Ardith said. No. Even if it isn't for you, I have to go along. Because if you failed, I have to come back and let my tribe know. Then we will take on the responsibility of killing the Scorpion King. It's difficult, but I have to come along. Zheng looked at Ardith thankfully. He understood it was true, but Ardith didn't have to do these things himself. He was the leader of the tribe, so he could send someone else to do it. Jonathan hesitated. F***ck. I have to see that diamond the size of 2 soccer balls with my eyes. There's no regret even if I die after seeing it. I am sorry, but I said it's the size of 1 soccer ball. Zheng felt moved by his words. O'Connell also nodded. I promise to help you, so don't worry. We will go search for the Scorpion King's treasure, and come back alive. O'Connell stared at Evelyn intensely. She thought for a bit then said. How about this? I won't go into the pyramid, but at least let me take a look. I will wait on the dirigible. Please, let me go take a look. Seeing O'Connell was wavering, Zheng and Jonathan shook their heads. The group rode back to Hamunaptra on the dirigible. This adventure in the tomb was too intense and not only left them with injuries, but they also needed to take a good rest. The 10 minutes in the tomb strained their spirit. Zheng could not disagree with the proposition. He had 60 days to kill the Scorpion King anyway. In the movie, the protagonists only spent 7 days. So he felt he shouldn't rush it in case God does something interesting again. This spear is good stuff. Powerful and convenient. The only issue is I have to get it back every time. I think there's a support item from God that returns arrows you shoot out. I will have to research the support items after I go back. Zheng muttered to himself as he looked down on the desert. God. What's that? Jonathan asked next to him. He was holding a glass of martini. Zheng turned his head around and laughed. You all right now? You and your sister slept from yesterday till noon today. Jonathan patted his shoulder. Fine, fine. It's just that I hadn't experienced such adventures for quite some time, so it felt unfamiliar. Give it a few more times and it will get better. Haha. Zheng said. You sure you want a few more? Jonathan waved his hands. I was kidding. Zheng laughed and threw a cigarette to Jonathan. I made it difficult for you guys. I could have gone alone if I know more hieroglyphs. I can simulate Tenji, but it only allows me to use the few words he taught me better. Jonathan took a smoke and said in a surprise. Nice tobacco. I don't know about the simulate since you aren't from our world. But I like adventures. In fact, we felt something's missing since the trip to the tomb. Zheng patted his shoulder. Missing the treasures, right? Haha. I have to thank you for this. I wouldn't have known what to do otherwise. No need for thanks. Though is there really a diamond the size of 3 soccer balls in the Scorpion King's treasures? It brings my expectations up. I am sorry. I said it is the size of 1 soccer ball. The group returned to Hamunaptra without any problems. The excavation was also going smoothly under the assistance of the Medjayas. There was no need to worry about a shortage of supplies in the desert or desert pirates. In the few days that Zheng was away, they had excavated a large part of the second level. We encountered a little danger. A scarab chewed a worker's hand yesterday. Fortunately, it ran away instead of entering the worker's body. An elder reported to Ardith. He looked terrified when he mentioned the scarab. Zheng slapped his own forehead. Oh right. I didn't think careful enough. Let the curator buy some flamethrowers from Cairo. We are only at the second level. The next few levels underneath have a lot of scarabs, so you will need flamethrowers to take care of them. Also focus on the cliff by the statue of Ra. The book of Amun-Ra was lost below the cliff. Preserve the altar after you dig it out. Anyway, remember to take good care of these 2 things when we are away. The elder nodded. Zheng turned to Ardith. Can you get some things for me? I need explosives, lots of them. If you plan to come along, I think you also need some weapons. Ardith laughed. Don't worry, my friend. I had already told my men to bring me weapons. Explosives aren't a problem. Though they are much less powerful than the ones you have. Zheng didn't say much more. He left Ardith with the Medjayas, then went back to his tent to study the spear and bracelet. These were the most valuable items he obtained in the mummy world. The spear of Osiris was at least a rank B item. Its power was determined by his blood energy and chi. In other words, when he grows stronger, the spear would become more powerful. He channeled half his total energy last time and the throw reached 1,000 meters away with a 10-meter area of effect. Would these numbers double if he were to channel all his energy at once? The bracelet of Anubis would allow him to summon the army of Anubis once he killed the Scorpion King. He could summon 6 mummies with blood energy currently. He had tested that if he used the summoning spell again, the previous 6 mummies would disappear and replaced by new ones. So he couldn't stay in a safe place to summon an army. But what if he had the bracelet? 300 warriors from the army of Anubis that was stronger than the mummies individually. If he completes this mission, their team strength would reach an insane level. However, he could imagine how difficult this mission was by the power of this item. As Zheng carefully studied the 2 items, he suddenly found something. The tiny scratches on the items were actually filled with strange symbols and characters. He had seen some of these characters on the protective charms he exchanged. When he channeled energy into the spear, the energy flowed through these symbols and characters, then the spear glowed in a golden light. That might probably be the source of its power. Zheng remembered something Xian said. If human ancestors created God, then the monsters in the movie worlds were probably enemies our ancestors encountered, and the spear of Osiris and bracelet of Anubis were weapons they created. Similar to items forged by Chinese immortals in legends, these items were created by the mysterious symbols and characters instead of modern technology. Which meant that they could be mass-produced. Shit. This would be game-breaking if every member has a spear and bracelet. We could start with 1,000 warriors, then everyone throw their spears. Haha. Zheng laughed in a self-mockery. He knew this was impossible. He didn't know these symbols and characters. Tenji might be able to recognize a few of them, and Xian could analyze it and create an item. However, Zheng wouldn't even be able to make a model with gold. I will revive everyone first. There's only so much I can do. Xian, you will be first. Please don't reject me. Lend me your strength. Zheng put the items back into the ring, then walked out of the tent into the excavation site. Yes, we can reach the altar in a month with this pace. However, if there's really a deep cliff, it's impossible to excavate the whole site in 2 months, unless you are willing to use explosives. An engineer said to Zheng. Zheng knew it was unreasonable to not use explosives when the cliff might be 100 meters deep. However, an ancient book was down there. It was all over if the book gets damaged by explosives. He wouldn't ever be able to forgive himself. I have been telling you I am searching for a book buried underneath the ruin. I don't care about anything else. I can buy you the best tools and machineries, the best supplies, food, wine, and even prostitutes. But I warn you not to use any explosives or brutal methods. You will all pay with your lives if the book gets damaged. The engineer wiped his forehead. He didn't know what to say to Zheng's unreasonable requirement. Partially due to the pressure he emitted, and more importantly, more and more Medjayas had been gathering around Hamunaptra as more gold gets excavated. These people sometimes appeared with guns. One worker was caught trying to steal gold and he was never seen again. So the engineer didn't doubt Zheng's words. I understand. Please give us 2 months and raise the workers' wages by 3 times. We won't see the bottom of the cliff if they don't dig with their lives. I also need some new machineries that aren't sold in Egypt. It should take a month to mail them over from Europe. We would also approach the cliff by that time. Zheng nodded. Okay, I will raise the wages tenfold as long as you can complete it in 2 months and bring me the book of Amun-Ra. Did you bring the money over? Zheng asked Ardith. Ardith nodded and clapped his hands. Several Medjayas walked in, each carrying a bag. They began pouring gold and cash from the bags. Zheng pointed to them and said. Gold, dollar, pound, franc. I can satisfy everything you want. But you must give me the book within the time frame. After the engineer left with the gold and money, Ardith said with a bitter smile. Looks like these workers are going to dig their lives out. They can enjoy their lives for quite a while after this job. Doesn't matter. Gold is worthless in our world. In contrast, the book of Amun-Ra isn't something that can be bought with gold. Ho ho, have you gotten a hold of the explosives and other things? Ardith nodded. The weapons are fine, but we don't have explosives that's powerful enough to meet your requirement. So I sent people over to Europe to bring back high-efficiency TNT. It will take a few more days for transportation. I have already notified them to come back by the end of this month at all cost. You have to stay here for 5 to 6 more days. Getting more powerful explosives was an idea he came up with on the spur of the moment. He just learned that God would raise the difficulty to the highest in the search for the bracelet. In the original movie, the protagonists completed the movie without life-threatening dangers. However, he had his life on the line the whole time for just 4,000 points and 2 rank C rewards. He remembered the pygmies dwelled in the oasis leading to the pyramid. God wouldn't give up this opportunity to change something. He could imagine what might appear there. Supersized lions or pygmies. He finally understood the significance of the higher cost to return to previous movies. Many difficult missions require the team to be strong enough to tackle. Some quest items needed their enhancements to reach a certain level to use. This spear would be useless if given to a newbie or someone enhanced with the wrong energies. Reaping rewards from previous movies also placed them on an equal level of difficulty. This was the exact same method God had forcing upon them to evolve. Team China never thought of this and spent the 10 days in between enjoying their peace, which allowed Team Devil to grow ahead of them. Zheng kept recalling the movies he had been through. However, he could only think of the T-virus from Resident Evil. Xian's analysis strength would be able to find every possible bonus missions. An important thing they lacked. Several days passed. It had been a month since Zheng entered the world. He either complete the mission and return alive, or get buried in this world along with the Book of Amunare. A new guide would appear and the cycle repeats for Team China. Zheng checked the weapons in his ring and bag. The submachine gun, magical bullets, beam tomahawk, Gatling cannon, grenades, Book of the Dead, TNT, and the most powerful weapon among them all, the Spear of Osiris. The movie characters stared with their mouths open. He could take on a small group with so many weapons. The contrast between them and the user, a tall and slender young man, was striking. Ardith was the only one that remained calm. Zheng laughed. I have something to say before setting out to find the Scorpion King. This journey is going to be extremely dangerous. I wish all of you can run away in time when danger comes. Don't put your lives in risky situation for me. O'Connell, protect your wife. I'd rather you don't come with me if something were to happen to you. My last question, do you really want to come search for the Scorpion King's treasure? Jonathan stood by the edge of the dirigible and laughed. Of course, I have to see that diamond the size of 5 soccer balls even if that costs my life. I have been saying it's 1 soccer ball. O'Connell and Evelyn met eyes. It shouldn't be a problem going to the desert. Haha, just don't give me a flood again. Ardith walked onto the dirigible carrying a mini machine gun and a bag of ammunition. His answer was firm. Zheng took a deep breath. He brought out the bracelet of Anubis then put it on his wrist. A light shone on the air sac of the dirigible. Everyone except Zheng turned around to look at it. Entered movie plot in advance. Difficulty increased to the highest. Completion awards double the points and rewards. Kill the Scorpion King and obtain its army of Anubis. Rewards 10,000 points and 2 rank B rewards. Owner of the bracelet of Anubis will be erased if mission is not completed within 60 days. 47 days remaining. This is the location of our third target, the Temple of Osiris. Which the first sight I see is beautiful women welcoming us. Jonathan said. The bracelet occasionally projected various images since Zheng wore it on his wrist. These images were the locations of temples remaining in Egypt. The group had to keep following the pointers and search one place after another. There wasn't much Zheng could do. Even though he saw the movie but he didn't know this world. Like if someone in the movie mentioned a location, would you be able to find it once inside the movie? So you had to keep asking people for the way to get there. Zheng had no other choice but to follow the locations projected by the bracelet. Fortunately, Evelyn knew Egypt well enough so she could figure out which temples they were by the images. The dirigible was also pretty fast. So they reached their third target in a few days. The previous 2 images appeared once Zheng got off the dirigible. However, there was no image this time even after he reached the entrance of the temple. Did they guess it wrong? Everyone turned to Evelyn. She shrugged and said, "Don't look at me. I am certain that I didn't get it wrong. The image appeared last time was definitely this Temple of Osiris. I don't know what went wrong. Maybe we should enter it?" Zheng suddenly took out the axe and submachine gun and said to them in a low voice. "Be careful. I felt something wrong with this temple. Don't you feel a sense of stress?" The others shook their heads. Then a large stone statue suddenly blocked their way. This statue was over 7 meters tall. Its body was weathered and looked thousands of years old. This was the statue of Osiris, the god of afterlife, the underworld, and the dead. The statue moved toward them while they were still in shock. Then punched where Zheng was standing. The air pressure coming from the punch was enough to let him know he couldn't take one hit. That force was over 900 kilograms, enough to turn him into a pancake. He immediately rolled backward. After he backed off 3 meters, bang. The whole ground trembled. He could tell there was a big hole without even looking. Zheng immediately yelled. "Get out of the temple. Hurry and run." Everyone else came back to their senses and ran for their lives. Even though they had the courage to fight the mummies, the army of Anubis, or even the large scorpions, but this 7-meter-tall statue was terrifying. Their actions were the same, turn around and run. Jonathan ran ahead of everyone as always. Then O'Connell followed behind carrying Evelyn. Ardith after and Zheng half crawling out at last. The statue was powerful but its speed was slower than the group. It barely reached the door when they were already outside. Then it crushed the temple door with a punch and walked toward them. F***CK, I am going to die. Zheng, did you ever offend God? That's why your luck is in the negatives. Jonathan yelled as he ran. Zheng laughed bitterly. However, he noticed the statue was only attacking him. Whenever he slowed down, the statue would prepare for an attack. So he yelled. "You guys go help me find an area of quicksand." The bigger the better. Hurry. Then he made a turn and ran toward the desert. The group split up to find quicksand in the desert. Thought the task wasn't so easy. After Zheng ran around in circles 3 laps, Jonathan said, "Hey, the sand ahead feels soft but I can't be certain if it's quicksand." Zheng didn't hesitate. He had to take any chance now. He made a turn and ran toward where Jonathan pointed at. The statue chased after him like it was not going to part until death. When one of Zheng's legs suddenly sunk into the sand, he activated the movement technique and ran on top of the sand. Though not quite the same for the statue. It was moving slower and slower in the quicksand until both its legs sunk in. Then its body slowly sunk until it disappeared after about a minute. Zheng could finally stop. He fell straight on the desert and just lay there. The intense running wasn't tiring. His body could sustain an hour or 2 of it. But the mental strain was overwhelming. The statue's attacks were simply too powerful. He could take a hit or 2 from aliens, creepers, or other monsters, but he was sure one punch from the statue was enough to smack him into a paste. Everyone else ran over to him. The situation was scary even for the people watching. Then an image projected from the bracelet into the air. Evelyn immediately said, "I know this place. It's the Abu Simbel temple, not far from where we are. We can get there by tomorrow." Zheng forced a smile. "Well, that's lucky. Can I ask how big the statues are? If it's too big, we will have to plan it out." Evelyn shook her head. "The statues are about as big as this one. It's in a sitting posture, so about 8 meters tall when it stands up. The temple in a desert, so we can probably get it into a quicksand, but... They all asked simultaneously. Zheng and Jonathan sounded intense. "That temple worships 3 statues. F***CK. One already almost took our lives. If all 3 comes at the same time, we might as well go home." Zheng smiled bitterly. Then an idea came to his mind and he brought out the Book of the Dead. Evelyn stared at the book as soon as she saw it. Zheng opened the book with its key, then pointed to the hieroglyphs. "Evelyn, can you help me translate the incantation? I need to find a spell that can create quicksand. Since these spells are all desert and death related, it should have something similar." Evelyn nodded and grabbed the book at once. She smiled like a child as she read out the spells. "Return of the dead, nope. Mummy guardians, nope. Sandstorm, nope. Resurrect the last creature killed by the Book of Amunare, nope." Evelyn read out every incantation in whole. However, something felt not right to Zheng. Though she soon found the spell for quicksand, which made him delighted to hear and asked her to teach him. At the same time, a group of people on camels were riding out of Hamunaptra. A woman asked an old man, "Priest, can the high priest still come back? We didn't find the Book of the Dead." The old man muttered, "The master will resurrect. The Medjayas made big movements to excavate Hamunaptra and we got a chance to slip in and stole his body. Those idiots only cared about the gold on the 1st and 2nd levels. Haha, we only have to steal the Book of the Dead, then master will descend our world again." A bag on the camel started moving. A dehydrated hand reached out from its opening. "Listen. We are up against 3 statues this time. I don't know if they can move, but to be safe, we should make preparations." Zheng and the others stood a few hundred meters outside the Abu Simbel temple. He pierced deep holes into the ground with the spear, then threw in several grenades. The grenades blasted open several holes that were at least 13 meters deep and 20 meters wide. There was no way the statues can climb back up once they fall inside. That's what I am worried about. This mission shouldn't be so simple. They might be able to climb. An 8-meter statue in a 13-meter deep hole. It just had to raise its hand to make a climb. Just like how you wouldn't get stuck in a 2-meter hole. Zheng said. Jonathan was drinking a bottle of wine. "I don't think these statues can jump. Their weight will just make them sink if they try to jump." Zheng laughed. "That's not so sure. Since it's not certain, I have to use the quicksand spell. Once they fall into the holes, buy me 3 seconds. Don't let them do something in this time. I will do my best to cast the spell and you will throw explosives at them. Remember to start throwing explosives once they are down there." Zheng brought 10 cubic meters of TNT since the dimensional bag had the space. He had sold about 7 cubic meters of gold to open up the space. He placed a dozen beside each person, so if one accidentally triggered, they would all go to heaven. Evelyn's face looked pale. "Zheng, can you put some of them back? Don't you think you took out too much?" Zheng looked around. It was indeed a bit too much. Even Ardith and O'Connell weren't looking so well. They moved slowly like they were in a minefield. Zheng had to put back most of them and left 3 bombs next to each person. His spell should only take 3 seconds, so 1 bomb each second was just enough. He was actually feeling anxious from going up against 3 statues. The group stood on one side of the holes. Zheng took a deep breath and walked toward the temple. This temple looked ruined. Its door was almost gone. The 3 statues sat near the edge of the cliff to the back of the temple. They gave a sense of weathered and aged. He measured them and they were almost 10 meters. Evelyn underestimated them. Zheng felt bitter. He noticed the previous statue could only move its legs at a set pace. So the 7-meter statue was slightly slower than him. However, if it was a 10-meter statue, its speed would go up by about 30% due to longer legs. Despite this, Zheng had no choice but to walk toward the temple. 50 meters away and the statues didn't move. As he approached the 10-meter mark, they trembled and stood up. The statues crossed several meters with one step and the one in front struck its fist at Zheng. This fist was larger than his body. Zheng activated the movement technique and ran toward the holes. The sound of impact and the powerful blast wave from his back had him know the statue punched a hole into the ground. Zheng ran at full speed, but the statues were much faster than the one before as expected. They ran toward the big holes in equal speed. Several hundred meters were just blinks of an eye for them. As Zheng approached the hole, he suddenly rolled to the side. The statues reached where he was and momentum brought them forward into a hole. Their fall sounded like meteors hitting the ground. At the same time, O'Connell, Jonathan, and Evelyn ignited the TNT and threw them into the hole. Dust instantly filled the hole with the explosion, followed by the sound of objects hitting the ground. These statues attempted to jump back up just as Zhen had expected. However, the explosion knocked them back down. He immediately brought out the Book of the Dead and began chanting the quicksand spell. His blood energy quickly depleted. The sand in front of him turned soft and the effect spread outward until it covered the hole. A statue that just fell from jumping was immediately consumed by the quicksand. Its heavy weight made it sunk very fast like the previous fight. Soon, all three statues disappeared. O'Connell, Jonathan, and Evelyn collapsed to the ground. Those 3 seconds felt like a year. The statues were horrifying every time they jumped and their huge faces came near the three. In fact, throwing those TNT became an instinct for survival. If the statues were to get out, they would be crushed by just the weight. Zhen walked over to them with a laugh. Jonathan said, "Are you really sure there's a huge diamond in the pyramid? The size of..." Zhen interrupted him. "Trust me. There's diamond the size of a soccer ball." O'Connell and Evelyn giggled. They finally sat up, but it would take some time before they could move. The bracelet on Zhen's wrist moved and projected an image. It wasn't the next destination. The image was of this Abu Simbel temple. Then it moved through a canyon with a river. At the end of the canyon was a forest. Moving into the center of the forest was a golden pyramid. The Scorpion King's treasure. Everyone muttered. They met eyes with each other then laughed. Their efforts didn't go to waste. The path to the Scorpion King's pyramid had been shown. All that was left was flying through the canyon with the dirigible, straight toward the pyramid. Zhen looked up at the sky. The sun was setting. The horizon was painted red. They couldn't go when they are exhausted during the night. So he laughed and said, "Let's take a rest here tonight. Tomorrow we will charge into the pyramid. Haha. Let's go up against the Scorpion King and seize his army." Everyone laughed. Several life and death struggles had created a bond beyond friendship. So they were happy when Zheng said these words with excitement. Jonathan took a drink from his bottle of wine, grabbed Zheng's shoulder and walked toward the dirigible. However, before they reached the dirigible, a sandstorm appeared from afar and quickly moved toward them. The deadliest natural phoneme in a desert. They looked to each other for a moment, then everyone did the same thing. They rushed into the dirigible. O'Connell yelled, "Izzy, take off. Take off." The black dude was enjoying a bottle of brandy when he heard the yell. He turned his head to where O'Connell was pointing. The bottle dropped to the deck and he yelled in reply, "I knew I would be in bad luck following you. I knew it." He unsheathed the sword on his waist and cut off the rope tying the dirigible. Everyone else had gotten up to the deck by this time. They stared as the sandstorm was coming closer and closer while the dirigible moved ever so slowly. F***CK. O'Connell was panicking. He grabbed Izzy. "Why the heck did you change from piloting airplanes to a dirigible?" Izzy yelled back at him. "Heck, like I am listening to you and drive a plane into the enemies again. If you don't let go of me, we are all going to have our asses kicked." As the sandstorm got closer, it was shaping into something. The scene felt so familiar, especially for O'Connell and Evelyn. Imhotep. As expected. The sandstorm formed a bald head. It opened its mouth like it was laughing and bit at the dirigible in mid-air. Izzy suddenly pulled a chain by the controls. 2 pillars of fire burst out from the back and pushed the dirigible forward, dodging the bite from the bald head. The head followed closely in equal speed to the dirigible. The two had flown for quite some distance when a canyon appeared in front of them. The bottom of the canyon was a river. Zhen yelled, "Izzy, drive the dirigible into the canyon. Hurry." Izzy did so without hesitation. To be honest, he didn't even have the time to think and just followed what others said. He focused his attention on the winding path of the canyon. The bald head also entered along with endless sand that filled the sky. It looked like the desert flooded into the canyon. The head was moving faster and slowly closed the gap between it and the dirigible. No. He didn't become faster. We slowed down. Evelyn immediately yelled. Izzy yelled back helplessly. "Do you think my fuel is endless? The acceleration can only last a little while. Grab onto something." The dirigible made a turn and almost threw everyone off it. The bald head was shrinking in size. When it almost reached the dirigible, its size was at the same height of the dirigible. By the time the others looked behind, the head melted into the river along with its sand. They paused for a moment then cheered. Nothing was as exciting as escaping from death. The excitement overcame the fact that the dirigible was flying in a slant. Izzy was shouting as the dirigible was going downward. Everyone grab onto something." Izzy finally yelled. O'Connell held Evelyn in his arms tightly and yelled back. F***CK. Can you say something new?" Izzy thought for a moment and added. "The dirigible is going to crash." Fortunately, they had already flown out of the canyon and crashed into a green forest. The dirigible hit a huge tree. The thick layers of branches and leaves buffered the impact from the crash. However, they still looked horrible after being thrown to the ground. "I knew it. I knew it. There's nothing good coming with you." Izzy massaged his head. The others also massaged where the crash got them. Evelyn was the only one intact. O'Connell held onto her the whole time and took the impact from the fall. She got up and looked around. This should be the oasis of Shire. God. There's really such a huge forest in the desert. That's unbelievable. It was said that the army of Anubis resided in this forest. Even the Scorpion King's pyramid was built around here. Evelyn laughed as she looked around with a pair of gleaming eyes. It looked like she couldn't wait any longer. Zheng smiled bitterly. He remembered Evelyn wasn't so obsessed with pyramids in the movie. Though, her son was kidnapped during the second movie and only had 7 days left. She wouldn't have any time to care about pyramids. Zheng got up and asked the others. "That was Imhotep. Didn't he get killed by us? And the Medjayas are excavating his pyramid. How did he revive?" Ardith's face looked terrible. He blew a whistle, then a little hawk flew over and landed on his arm. The hawk has been following us just in case something happens so I can get in contact with my tribe. Let me ask what's happening in Hamunaptra. Hope it isn't something big. Ardith wrote on a little piece of paper, then inserted it into a bottle tied to the hawk's feet. He raised his arm up and the hawk flew away. After it was gone, everyone looked at Zheng. He muttered, I am not afraid of fighting Imhotep. But he can't be killed. If that was really Imhotep, we will need the Book of Amunare to kill him. There's no way to deal with him until we dig out the book. Let's go find the pyramid in the forest first. Imhotep should lose his powers inside the pyramid. They didn't understand why he said that with such certainty. Everyone organized their weapons and bags. Izzy said, God, the dirigible is unusable now. Look, the gas bag is broken. This is not a hot air balloon. How are we going to find gas in this forest? O'Connell faked a laugh. Izzy, men shouldn't complain about everything. We trust that you will find a way. Haha, yes. You will find a way to make the dirigible take off again. He grabbed Evelyn and ran ahead. The others also ran behind O'Connell, leaving Izzy by the dirigible. Poor man had to take care of this half-destroyed dirigible alone. On a desert, Imhotep opened his eyes and laughed. Didn't kill them, but they are just in front of me. I will take their lives the next time I see them. I heard what they said. No more Book of Amunare, haha. Imhotep walked in front. A beautiful woman, an old man in black robe, a muscular black man, and a group of cavalry followed behind him toward the canyon beyond the temple.